Shout out to Star Mechanical, and shout out to our friend JD Young from Locked On Sharks for swinging by. JD, how's your summer been?
It's been a great summer in San Jose land. The vibes right now are off the charts when it comes to these Sharks in the future.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. What are like some big summer things to do in San Jose? What goes on in that area?
San Jose, I mean, you have kind of everything, right? You've got San Francisco, which is going to be the coldest summer you've ever had. You can go up to wine country in Napa. If you can go to the beach, there's plenty of stuff to do. That's the great thing about California. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. So, yeah.
All right. Well, let's start with the biggest question when it comes to the San Jose Sharks offseason. How excited are you to see Cody Ceci in the lineup?
Of course, right? Cody Ceci, the most important member of the offseason for the Sharks. So, no, I think Cody Ceci is going to be an interesting piece to San Jose. Add some veteran leadership, even though they already have a 1,000 old guys on the blue line. But I'm interested to see what Mike Grier flips him for at the trade deadline, because Cody Ceci is the type of defender every GM overvalues and loves that type of player. So I would not rush out to buy my Cody Ceci Sharks jersey this season.
Fair enough. Okay, now I'll get to the actual real first question I had written down. But I compared what the Sharks are going into to kind of like what the Oilers went into in 2010. They had a couple of rough seasons. They had started to accumulate some prospects. Then they got Taylor Hall, and it was like, here we go. Finally, this team's going to be exciting again. Is it fair to, I guess, categorize as the Sharks as, while they might not be miles better in the standings next year, it's going to be miles better in terms of enjoyment watching them?
Yeah, 100%, right? You have Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, both these guys making their NHL debuts this season. Will Smith, the 4th overall pick in the 2023 draft. Macklin Celebrini, of course, the prize of the 2024 draft. The reason why you lost all those games this season, and the Sharks should be more entertaining just for that. You also pair that with William Eklund, who had a great season last year. And there's a lot of excitement around the Sharks just because you can kind of see, the foundation's been poured. You can kind of start to see the framing going up on this rebuild. And I think Mike Grier's done a really good job in a very short amount of time to kind of take this team that was very lost and had no direction. Capital C, commit to the rebuild, and then now I think we're starting to kind of see the blossoms of the flowers of this rebuild. So that's two analogies: a house built and a garden all in one. So
yeah, I think the most surprising signing of the offseason for a variety of ways was Tyler Toffoli signing in San Jose. Just considering where he's at his point in his career and signing a 4-year deal. I guess firstly, what did you make of the signing? And secondly, were you also surprised they managed to get Toffoli?
Yeah, I was surprised that they managed to get Toffoli because I thought kind of the same thing, right? He's a guy who's done a lot of stuff. He's bounced around a lot of teams and, is kind of trying to recapture that glory of winning a cup since, his early days as a LA King. But for the Sharks, he's the perfect type of signing, right? The man's a walking 25 to 30 goals every year. It doesn't matter the situation. He's bounced around a bunch of places, and all he does is score goals. And the way he scores goals is off the rush. And if you look at what Macklin Celebrini does in college, especially in college, his ability to create off the rush and drive off the rush, those two are the perfect pairing together. And I think a guy like Toffoli, who even said in his kind of introductory press conference, he wanted to kind of give back the same way a lot of his LA Kings teammates did to him as he was kind of making it his way into the league. He wanted to kind of turn around and do that for the Sharks team, especially with, again, a Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith, who are both 18 to 19 years old. I think Toffoli is going to be the perfect Shark for them. Was it maybe a year too long of a contract, maybe a little bit expensive? Yes, but when you're the Sharks and you have all the cap room in the world right now, that stuff doesn't matter. It's more about just kind of raising the floor right now of being a competent team and not getting kind of blown out 10-1 or 10-2 every night. So I think Toffoli's going to do a lot of that and just, again, be a really kind of somebody that a guy like Celebrini can lean on.
Yeah, I do think, again, to draw parallels to the Oilers rebuild, or I shouldn't even say draw parallels, for teams who want to use the Oilers as an example of what not to do when you're rebuilding. Yeah. I think going out and getting a guy like Toffoli and making those the veteran ads you do, whereas the Oilers were like Ben Eager, Eric Belanger, and it was like
Darcy Hordichuk.
And it's like, okay, these guys are scrubs. They're not going to help you win. And that culture of losing just continued. You go get Toffoli, and he crosses both, right? Good veteran guy. He's won. He's been in a bunch of different locker rooms, and he's still going to be a quality winger to potentially put with Macklin Celebrini, which is obviously where I want to go next. What are your expectations for Celebrini? Do you think he can have I'll call it a Bedard-esque first season where, hey, the production is really there right from the jump? Or do you think, some of the comparisons we heard about him at the draft is that maybe he's a bit more of like a two-way guy? Do you think that could lead to a slower development, slower entrance into the league?
Maybe not as he's not gonna be as flashy as Connor Bedard, right? What we saw Connor Bedard do, like he has that elite shot and quickness with his release, and that's not so. I mean, Celebrini is a great shot. Like Celebrini is just a kind of more of a high. He can do anything, and we saw especially Bedard in the defensive zone get lost at times, and there's plenty of highlights or lowlights of kind of Bedard in his own zone. I don't think we'll see that much out of Celebrini with that. He's still going to have his ups and downs as any 18-year-old kid does. But I think for what we saw him doing in the NCAA, being the youngest guy last year, but being a strong presence in his own defensive zone and then creating that transition, I think Celebrini, I don't expect to see maybe the same point production as Bedard, but I think you'll probably see a better two-way game out of Celebrini compared to Bedard. So, but yeah, I think for Celebrini, that 55, 60 points mark is probably a reasonable expectation for him. I mean, this team still is probably going to struggle to score goals. They were the second worst offense in the NHL last year. And of course they had the minus 150 goal differential last year, which is one of the worst goal differentials in modern NHL history. But I think what Celebrini is going to do is, again, just kind of helping to raise that floor of being a competent team night in and night out. And I think that, like I said, that 55, 60 points kind of feels really fair for him.
You got anything else?
No,
I have an Askarov one.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of what I was thinking of. But
yeah, I mean, just how big of a move is that? They obviously gave up a lot to get him, but having a piece that is trending towards or looking like he could be a Vezina caliber goalie for a decade plus, like how big of a check mark and how big of a victory is that for Mike Greer?
It's pretty good, if you ask me. I know it's a lot to give up, right? Giving up a first round pick, giving an unprotected 2025 Vegas pick. We don't know with Vegas, right? What that team has very much this could be where the floor drops out, or they could just make another run because it's Vegas and they'll do something crazy like they always do. Yes, that kind of stinks giving that up, but the Sharks weren't going to get a goalie of that caliber with that pick, right? And the Sharks have struggled to draft and develop goalies. It's been, even if you kind of look back, like Martin Jones, right? Drafted and developed by the Kings, they traded for him via the Boston Bruins. In the past couple of years, they've wandered the desert looking for some sort of goaltending help. But getting a guy like Askarov, who I think really also fits in with the timeline, right? You think about Celebrini and Smith and some of these other guys. Next 2 to 3 years, they're going to be kind of going through it, and by then you kind of expect them to really start to kind of hit the ground running and hit their peak. And Askarov is going to fit right in with that timeline where everybody's going to be kind of coming together at the right time. So that was the biggest question in the Sharks pipeline was, can you find a goalie? And they've really, like I said, really have struggled to draft and develop goalies. And I think kind of taking advantage of a situation, I think Mike Greer did the right thing. And a guy like David Edstrom, who is probably going to be the 4C long-term for the Sharks. Like you can find 4C guys like on the street, no problem. So I no problem with giving up what they gave up because I think, again, you have to kind of make sure everybody starts to fit together. And even if you drafted a first-round goalie next year, if there was a guy who kind of pops up into that range, is that guy going to fit the timeline, especially with how long these goalies take to develop? Even these top-tier ones, a guy like Jesper Wallstedt, barely starting to kind of crack the lineup, and it's been, he was in the 2021 draft. I think for Askarov, again, it just everything kind of really comes together, and I think this is the bow on what has been an outstanding offseason Mike Greer and the Sharks.
There is one more question. We have to ask it. Chad is literally screaming at us. What can
Ty Emberson?
Yes. What can you tell us about Ty Emberson? Probably shouldn't have asked that question.
Ty Emebrson, he's a very good defenseman. The Sharks claimed him off of waivers last year from the New York Rangers. So you wonder if the tinfoil hat guy in me says maybe Barclay Goodrow claim was kind of a make good for the Emberson claim. I know the Rangers really, really want to keep Emberson in their system, but great. Like I said, great defensive defenseman. You're not going to see a lot of offense out of him, but he's a really good stay-at-home defenseman. So if you partner him with a maybe a little bit more offensive prone guy on the left side, I think Emerson is going to work well there. Did struggle with some injuries last year, got shut down because he took a skate. I think it was to the calf or something like that, if I recall correctly, and needed stitches, and they basically shut him down at the end of the season. So health is a little bit of an issue here, but I think he's going to really fit in to be a nice cheap contract and be able to kind of just stay at home and play defense for you. So I think he'll be a really nice fit for the Oilers.
Cheap and good defensively. That I'd sign me up for that every day.
That's all you're asking for at this point. Yeah,
exactly. JD, appreciate your time, man. Thanks for popping on, and we'll chat with you throughout the season.
All right. Thanks, guys.
What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.